Onyeka Okongwu has signed a 4-year, $62 million extension with the Hawks. Finally, they're showing it's time to turn the page off of Clint Capela and hand the keys of the center position to Okongwu. Or at least that's what they're showing financially. Capela is still on the roster, so for the time being, Okongwu remains a high-level backup to Capela, but that won't last for long. Capela will be traded before the beginning of this extension, the beginning of next season. But let's discuss in more detail the impact of Onyeka Okongwu, his contract situation alongside that of Clint Capela's, and what the future holds for the two bigs in Atlanta. Okongwu quietly continues to be one of, if not the best backup center in the NBA. In 23 minutes a game last season, Onyeka averaged 10 points a night alongside 7 boards, whilst averaging 1.3 blocks and shooting 63.8% from the field. Onyeka Okongwu has continued to increase his role year in, year out throughout his 3-year career, and has been an ever-growing presence defensively as a rim protector and reaching the elite tier of rebounders in the association. He may only be 6'8", but Okongwu knows how to get on the glass both offensively and defensively. He has also shown some flashes of some more layers to his offensive game. That being said, Okongwu's greatest strength on the offensive end is his lob threat, and pair that with Trae Young, and it ranked him in the top 10 of made alley-oops in the league last year. He's a great lob threat, however his push shot out of the pick and roll has continued to show more promise, and may become one of those added layers to his offense as he continues to develop his game. And although it's been in limited moments, Okongwu has made some great reads as a passer, finding the difficult but smart pass as opposed to the easy pass when playmaking out of the post. Okongwu especially hit another level when new head coach Quinn Snyder joined the team mid-season. When Snyder took over, Okongwu was top 5 in the league in offensive rebounding percentage and second chance points, and those contributions had a massive impact, as when Snyder was in town, the Hawks ranked second in offensive rebounding percentage and first in second chance points per game. The biggest concern for him, as it's continued to be throughout his career, is foul trouble, and that did not change last season. He will have to learn to block shots and protect the rim smarter, not harder, as he transitions to the Hawks starting center of the future, but the talent is certainly there with Okongwu, especially on the glass and on the defensive end. Now, despite this new extension and the production of Okongwu, the reason we are still discussing Okongwu as a backup for the time being is due to the presence and contract of Clint Capela. Back in 2021, Clint Capela signed a 2-year extension, making him an Atlanta Hawk through the 2024-25 season. This extension is just now kicking in this 2023-24 season, paying him nearly $46 million a year over the next 2 years. And because of that salary figure, it likely keeps him as the Hawks starting center for as long as he remains in Atlanta. Cue a Clint Capela trade. A trade of Clint Capela is the most obvious solution in Atlanta now that Okongwu is also set to now be making a bag. Okongwu is now being paid like a starting center beginning next season, and he's played more than well enough to be one. But under no circumstances does it make sense for the Hawks to put the $23 million of Clint Capela on the bench and in total be paying roughly $40 million a year next season amongst Capela and Okongwu. It may make sense for basketball reasons, but from a financial construction of your roster, it doesn't, especially for a team that doesn't like to dip into the luxury tax. For this reason, I fully expect Clint Capela to be traded, if not within this season, then by the beginning of the 2024-25 season. Now, the inevitability of Capela losing the starting job to Okongwu is much more about Okongwu than it is about Capela. After a down 2021-22 season, Capela had a nice bounce-back season last year. Capela averaged 12 and 11 on an efficient 65% from the field, and he'll continue to do that. He'll continue to be a great rebounder and a very productive lob threat who offers some pretty good rim protection, which netted him 1.3 blocks a game last year. At only 29, Capela still has at least some years ahead of him as a quality starting center in this league, and because of that, he should have some value across the league in a trade, whether it be in this season or next summer. A trade option for the Hawks is the Memphis Grizzlies. Thanks to the injury of Steven Adams, the Grizzlies are very, very thin in the front court, which I just talked about in the past week, so be sure to check that video out if you haven't. But point being is they're going to be really desperate for some quality in the front court, and their depth alternatives internally to replace Steven Adams are not great. In this mock trade I'm showing on screen, you can argue the protections and the year of the first round pick and even what pieces should be included, whether it's Steven Adams that makes the money work, whether it's Luke Kennard that make the money work. But this is the type of framework that could allow the Hawks to move off of Capela, whilst a team like the Grizzlies that need a center acquire their center that they need this season. In the case that Adams is the guy who returns to Atlanta, obviously he doesn't give them any immediate value, and he is another big, but he himself could be traded again next summer as he returns to health. Another trade option that could happen this season, likely closer to the trade deadline, is with the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks thought they had their answer at the center position last year in Christian Wood, however that experiment has come and gone. Derek Lively is now the new guy in town and certainly has great upside, but if he takes some time to adjust the NBA, the Mavs could look to bring in Capela to bridge the gap over the next 2 years and provide some valuable mentorship for Lively. If the trade were to go through in the next several months, the majority of the players on the Mavericks roster could not be traded, as many of them were just signed or drafted this offseason, resulting in Richaun Holmes and Maxi Kleber being the likely package of players. However, as we get closer to the trade deadline, salary filler options such as Markieff Morris and Dante Exum or even Seth Curry could then be traded. This could increase the likelihood of such a trade, given the potential reluctance of the Mavs to trade Maxi Kleber, but if the Hawks can get the three-point shooting and defense of Kleber off of their bench, it would be a very valuable addition. Tim Hardaway Jr. is another guy who can get involved in trade discussions who would match salaries even better with Capela. Whether the Hawks would want him, who knows, and at that point maybe the Mavericks add a little bit more draft or future asset capital into such a trade. Now that's only, of course, if Capela is traded in season. There is still a significant likelihood that Capela remains on the roster, remains the starting center throughout the 2023-24 season, and is then traded next offseason. We will predict such potential trade packages as the time nears closer next offseason, because trying to predict trades right now is hard enough. We ain't doing it for in 12 months' time. The Hawks have put themselves in a great position of having two good starting caliber centers. But as Okongwu has received his extension and is only a year away from being paid like a starter, it's time to let the young man shine. It's time to trade Clint Capela and let Onyeka Okongwu be the future of the Atlanta Hawks frontcourt.